Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Commander Bob Weber with the Flagler County Sheriff's Office. And on behalf of Sheriff Rick Staly and the men and women of the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's presentation of Addressing Crime Together, a community update. Today, the Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staly and Police Chief Tom Foster from the City of Bunnell will provide us with an update on crime in their area and agency accomplishments over 2017 and what we can expect to see in the future. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment just to recognize a couple local officials. Chairman of the County Commission, Mr. Gregory Hansen, Commissioner Nate McLaughlin, Commissioner Charlie Erickson, our clerk of the court, Tom Bexley, from the City of Palm Coast, Melissa Holland, and Police Chief Tom Foster. City Manager of Bunnell, I'm sorry. I'd now like to just take a couple moments just to go over what we can expect to see. In a minute, I'm going to announce, give you an update on who our moderator is going to be for this afternoon. That'll be followed by Sheriff Staly's presentation and then Chief Foster's presentation. We have comment cards in the back, question and answers. If you have questions that you would like to ask either one of the presenters, feel free to fill out a card. The Sheriff's Secretary is in the back, so if once you complete the card, you can get it to her, and she'll bring it up here to the moderator, and that question will be answered. At this time, I'd like to introduce the moderator for today, Dr. Joe Saviak, Professor of Public Management at Flagler County.
Thank you very much, and very grateful to all of you who would take time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Very pleased to assist in moderating this special event today. Community service is a core value at Flagler College, and so anytime we have the opportunity to volunteer our time and abilities to any community causes and to aid in the success of our communities in our region, we love to do that. The Sheriff is going to be providing a very comprehensive presentation to you to begin today's program. In introducing him, I really want to underscore 2 points that really strike me as a professor of public management. And that's first, you know, in the 20th century, we kind of had like a vending machine view of government, you know, like people pay their taxes and people in government do their thing, and there's no need for citizens to get informed or involved or engaged or participate. Hey, we got it. Now in the 21st century, our model really is, and Flagler County is an excellent example, is the partnership model. And that is, we want citizens informed. We want citizens involved. We want citizens engaged. In fact, they can contribute to the success of the mission of the organization, which here is public safety, in many very important, meaningful ways. Through information they provide, through engaging in crime prevention with the agency, in aiding in services and programs provided to the community, in volunteering their expertise and experience to assist the agency. So today, what you all are doing as a county and a city and as a community today is an excellent example of engaging citizens as partners to help address important needs and issues in the community. The second point that really impresses me today is collaboration. You have a culture of collaboration here in Flagler County, and it's wonderful to see all the different partners, governmental, nonprofit, business, all coming together because you highly value public safety and your quality of life here. And you know that by being engaged and by being involved and by doing something we'd probably love to see them do in Washington, D.C. these days, work together to get something done for the people that you work for, right? And so it's really impressive to me as a professor of public management to get to see that in action today, and that your community is a model and an excellent example of that type of problem-solving partnerships between citizens and government, and the collaboration between all three sectors and between all the different agencies and entities of government. With that said, I could provide you a lengthy biography of your sheriff, but you know him. You know him very, very well. And I will say this, because I do speak throughout the state of Florida. I work with a lot of different local governments throughout Florida. You have one of the most highly respected law enforcement leaders in the state of Florida leading your sheriff's office. He's a humble man. He's not going to say that, so let me say that. And when I interact with counties and sheriffs and state lawmakers throughout the state, they continually single out your sheriff and your sheriff's office, because it's the entire team that makes the magic happen, as producing the success story that is the Flagler County Sheriff's Office. And so I now would like to give you our sheriff, Rick Staly. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you also for coming. The reason we have such a vibrant community is because this community is engaged. And one of the focuses when I became sheriff was to implement guardianship policing as our philosophy. And guardianship policing requires a partnership with the community, with neighborhoods, right down to individual streets with the sheriff's office. And I think as you see as we go through today that we're quickly building that. And this is one of those opportunities to engage the community to ensure that we are all working as guardians in our community. There are a few people that I want to introduce just so that you can get a face with a name. I got a great team. And I'm smart enough to set the direction and then get out of their way and let them do the job. But there are some key people that are instrumental in delivering that service to you. So Under Sheriff Jack Bislin is in the back. Division Chief Mark Strobridge runs our organizational services, and I affectionately tell him that he missed the meeting, got everything that nobody else wants, such as budgeting and HR and all that, vehicles and IT and all that fun stuff. Chief Steve Cole is here somewhere. Steve runs our court and detention services, or he is the general manager of the Green Roof Inn. Let's see, Chief Steve Brandt is here somewhere. Steve is the chief over investigative services, and then Chief Paul Bovino. Chief Bovino runs community policing, or those green and white cars that you see, and many other components of the agency that you see the most. And I'm not going to introduce everyone here, but I do want to introduce the district commanders, and I'll explain that in a little more detail here in a minute. But we have Commander Jeff Stewart. Jeff has District 1 and District 3, and then Commander Jerry Datola. Commander Datola runs District 2, which is the city of Palm Coast. Okay, so he has the largest command under him for patrol services. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And what I intend to do is kind of show you where we have been and then where we're heading in 2018 and what we're seeing in 2018 crime-wise. So one of the things that we did in 2017 was focus on crime reduction strategies. I'm a firm believer that our job is to reduce crime. Not to cap it, not to sit back and watch it increase, but to actually try to reduce it. And I hold our team accountable for doing that. So we focus on the quality of life crimes that affect our community. We've implemented an intelligence-led policing model known as crime maps. And that's where the team gets together every Wednesday and goes over crime and who we believe is committing it and what are the trends that we're seeing, so we can focus delivery to positively impact the crime. And we're constantly refining it and improving that. And we're already seeing some, what I would say are pretty good preliminary results that I'll share with you as we go through this, because many times somebody that we talk about on Wednesday, but we don't have enough probable cause to arrest, by Thursday they're in jail because we focus on. So we focus on who we believe is committing the crime, because we know that most crime is done by about 10% of the people. And so if you focus on those people that just can't seem to learn, we can have a positive impact throughout the community. Compared to last year, already this year, we're seeing a significant reduction in crime, which I'm going to talk about. And we believe that's because we laid the foundation in 2017. The City Council and the County Commission both funded additional staff, and you're now starting to see the fruits of that investment. And you know, we're going to continue to implement our reduction strategies. So the real key takeaway from this is that while our population is increasing, our focus area crime is decreasing. So anytime you can have population increase and crime going down, that's a good thing for the community. It's a good thing for us personally. It's a good thing for the businesses and those that maybe want to relocate a business here, because they look at education and they look at crime and they look at the other opportunities in a community. So if you look at our focus crimes, which are robbery, and we're down 500% so far this year. Commercial burglary, we're down 75%. Burglary and residential is down 49%. Car breaks are up 13%, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And stolen vehicles are down 22%. So far this year in the first quarter, we're having an 18% reduction in crime. Hopefully that will maintain throughout the entire year, but we'll see. But let me talk about the car breaks. We do a lot of marketing, we do a lot of community engagement to lock your car doors. And unfortunately, it's not taking hold. And you know, I can't make people lock their car doors, but we have video from home security systems that these criminals that walk through a neighborhood at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you see them pulling on car doors, on the handles. And if they're locked, they go to your neighbors until they find one that's unlocked. Well, that's a burglary, and it could have been prevented had the car doors been locked. The reason we've had stolen vehicles, and some of you may find that a surprise that we have so many stolen vehicles, is because not only do they leave the cars unlocked, they leave the keys in the car. And if they didn't leave their keys in the car, they left their spouse's car keys in case they were ever needed in the future, so when they get up in the morning, their car's not stolen, but the spouse's is. So, you know, just crime prevention is that we just have to continue to drill down, and everybody needs to take ownership and being a partner in that. And some of that's caused because they feel safe in the community overall. And, you know, I happen to live in a gated community, and I have 2 cars that sit out in my driveway because I got too many cars, quite frankly. And I still lock my car doors. And so we just need to continue to do that. So how have these reductions been accomplished? Well, quite frankly, it's the dedication and the focus efforts by our uniform and plainclothes deputies on patrol. We now have improved intelligence sharing between all the units in the sheriff's office and our surrounding agencies. We follow up on juvenile probationals. So we know that when they're given home confinement, or you got to stay home before your trial as a juvenile, and you have a curfew imposed by the judge at 8 p.m., we found that there was no follow-up, there was no check. So we go knock on a door, starting at about 8:30 at night. And if they're not home, that's a violation of probation, and we file a charge to the state attorney's office. So they know that we're checking up on them. We also know who Department of Corrections is releasing back to our community. So Department of Corrections, state prison. So we get the notices, and we go knock on their door and welcome them back to the community. How can we help you be successful and not go back to state prison? And so indirectly, obviously, then they know that we know that they're out, we know what they were charged with and why they went to prison, and so they become a focus if they start acting up again. So this is mostly good news, about 18% down. It goes back to, if you see something, say something. Don't ever hesitate to call us. I'd much rather have our deputies respond, investigate something that turns out that it's okay, than the next morning we have 15 car burglaries reported, and the neighbor says, you know, I saw this person walking around, but I didn't think to call, or, you know, I didn't want to bother you. It's never a bother, just calls. And like I said, 80% of the car breaks could be prevented if our residents would lock their car doors. So overall, violent crime is down 18%. And you can see aggravated assaults down, robberies are down. Our rapes are up, and I'll explain that. And we've had one homicide so far this year. So let me talk about the rapes. The reason we have the increase is we have one case reported that we're investigating that had many victims to it. And it was actually occurred a few years ago. It was just now reported. But what we're excuse me, what we're seeing in rape type cases is that the offender is usually known by the victim. Now, it's either a boyfriend, if you will, or it could be a parent, or having a lot of issues. When I say a lot, numbers-wise, no, but when you look at what our major case detectives are investigating when it comes to sex crimes, it's really disheartening and sad when you see what people will do to somebody that they are related to. Property crime is down 6% in every category except shoplifting. Shoplifting has increased dramatically, or at least the apprehensions. It's probably always been there, but the apprehensions have increased dramatically. And so, of course, that drives the number up. But if you look at shoplifting, in 2017, January through March, we had 45, and already this year we've had 82. So significant increase in shoplifting. Our arrests are up. So thank you, commissioners, for building the addition to the jail a couple of years ago. We're up 27% in arrests for 2018. Now let me tell you what that tells me. So I look at self-initiated activity to see if we have a team that is engaged and working. So when I see traffic stops up, it doesn't matter to me if they write tickets, but that's a self-initiated activity. If I see arrests up, in many cases, that's a self-initiated activity. So an agency is engaged and working when you see the self-initiated activity increasing, and that's what we see here. So you can see simple batteries arrests are up. The drug arrests are up slightly. Property crime arrests and person crimes are up. But arrests are up 27%. So let's talk about what we're seeing in narcotics in our community. So our narcotics arrests are up. An interesting fact is that the female offenders are increasing, which is a trend actually that we're seeing across the country. And what we're really seeing in Flagler County is Dilaudid, oxycodone, fentanyl-laced heroin, bath salts, THC, hash oil, and marijuana. That seems to be the drugs that we are finding the most in Flagler County. Juvenile arrests. So let's talk, what are our youthful offenders doing? Well, if you look at the top 5, it's violation of probation, and that's because now we're checking on them. Whereas before, you know, it was a piece of paper, it didn't mean anything. Drug offenses, battery, and burglary are the top 5 for our youthful offenders. Let's look at our clearance rates. So property crime is one of the hardest crimes to solve, and that tends to drive down clearance rates because that's the majority of crime in any community. Violent crime tends to be much easier to solve because usually there's good witnesses, they may be relationship based, but anyways, property crime lowers it. But the statewide clearance rate in 2016 was 25.6%. This agency in 2016, I was not sheriff then, had a clearance rate of 21.66%. The clearance rate in 2017 statewide was 23.5%. We averaged the state basically at 23.53%. But so far this year, we're at almost a 28% clearance rate. And it may not seem like a lot, but I will tell you that is a good clearance rate for law enforcement anywhere in this country, especially knowing how difficult property crimes are. We also filed in 2017 120 more cases with the state attorney's office. But the real important statistic with that is that the state attorney's office filed 25% more criminal cases than they did the year before, which means that the investigations are better, the quality of the cases are better, and they're willing to file those cases. So I mentioned the districts, and we have district commanders. So in mid last year, I think it was right after July 4th, we implemented district policing. District policing assigns the patrol deputies to a geographical area that frankly makes sense. So we have 3 distinct areas in this community. You have the beach island side, which has unique needs. Then you have the urban core, Palm Coast, which has everything that a big city is going to have. And then you have the west side that has farmers, ranches, and the things that a rural community have. Everybody thinks about Flagler County as being, frankly, Palm Coast and maybe the beaches, Flagler Beach. But the majority of this county land-wise is west of US 1. And so each of those 3 areas have distinct and unique needs. So by implementing district policing, it allowed our deputies to focus in a geographical area, get to know the community, get to know the unique needs of the community, and focus on, instead of moving around all over the place. And so District 1 is basically the island beach side, District 2 is Palm Coast, and then District 3 is the west side. Now, there's not enough service needs in District 1 to have a commander by itself. I'm sure if I did that, they would love that job because it's you know, it's car breaks at the beach access points, it's disturbances at the different pubs, speeding, but for the most part, it doesn't have a lot of serious crime. So that would be kind of like the vacation job. So I'm too tight with the tax dollars. So Commander Stewart has District 1 and District 3. So he has the farms, so he goes from the beaches to the farms and the cows. And then Commander Detola has Palm Coast, and we assigned the deputies. We asked the deputies when we implemented this, what is your preference? Give us your first and second choice on where you would like to be assigned. Because if you can match their interest with their assignment, everybody gets a better product. So we did that, and all but 3 deputies got their first choice. And the 3, of course, were the rookies, right? And the majority of the deputies are assigned to Palm Coast because that's where the population is and the biggest calls for service. So the assignment was based on calls for service, how many deputies get assigned to the different districts. And is it working? Well, I can tell you that it's working because our emergency response time in the city of Palm Coast, District 2, has dropped to under 4 minutes. And that's it. If you look at where it had been, it was over 5 minutes. And in February of this year, our average response time on an emergency call was 3 minutes and 23 seconds. And that's all attributed to assigning people to the right areas and focusing them. Obviously, the west side, for example, is going to have a little bit higher response time because it's big areas, and the staffing doesn't require so many deputies, so they patrol a larger area. Countywide calls for service, what we're seeing already is a 12% increase when you compare year-to-date 2017, year-to-date 2018. So commissioners and mayor, stand by, budget's coming up. Okay. But the community is, calling us more. Detention, our average daily population is growing. The average population now is 208 a night in the jail is the average. But I've seen it spike to almost 230. When I became sheriff, it was averaging 130. And so the deputies are out there making arrests, and they're going to jail, and many times they're being held there. Some of them, now that we have capacity in the jail, are inmates sentenced to county jail time, and I'll talk what we're doing with them in just a minute. But I'm okay with that, because when they're in jail, they're not stealing from you and doing other crimes in the community. Our bookings are up 23%. So not everybody who stays in jail, they get booked, they bond out, they may go to a first appearance the next morning, and judge releases them or lowers the bond. And we do not set the bond. There's a bond schedule that's set by the chief judge that we have to go by during the initial arrest. But judges have the authority to lower or raise the bond, or even release people on their own recognizance pending the trial. So you can see that we are averaging about 250, 60 arrests a month in the county. We have done a lot to engage the community. You've probably seen some of these initiatives. We're doing a lot to prevent crime. Don't drive scary, drive safe during Halloween. Our sheriff taxi car, and it does have a taxi, light on the front. And when we arrest a drunk driver and they're in that car, we're taking them to the jail, the taxi light is on. Hopefully you've seen our Fugitive Friday bingo. We're running about a 60% apprehension rate on that. We even had one guy decided to antagonize us, or I should say taunt us on Facebook after we made him an episode. He wanted us to pay him $10,000 for using his mugshot. And we tracked him to Citrus County, and I called the sheriff over there, who's a friend of mine, and I said, I've got this guy taunting us on Facebook. Can you help me get him? And within about 3 or 4 hours, he was in custody in Citrus County. And when our deputy brought him back from Citrus County, he wanted to stop at the Green Roof Inn sign and have a photo. That was one of the things he was taunting us about. We do women's self-defense training and active killer training, and we do a lot of community business and school assessments. We've really ramped up our presence on social media. The city of Palm Coast did a survey, and 49% of their residents use Facebook for information and to communicate. So we do a lot of social media out there. And thanks to Brittany Kershaw, she's the Public Affairs Office Manager. When we hired her, there was about 5,000 likes, I think, on the Sheriff's Office Facebook, and we're over 13,000 now. And I attribute a lot of that to Brittany. But we want to engage the community. We're not going to hide crime from you. I believe that an informed community helps us all be safe and know what to look for and how to prevent crime. You may have seen this. If you haven't seen the Green Roof Inn sign, it's the entrance to the jail. And I called Brittany. I said, Brittany, let's go take a photo because we're going to announce, that we have this sign that was paid for by drug dealers, by the way. And so after we got done taking the sign, there's a accommodations sign and an exit sign. She said, let's do a video. So if you haven't seen the video, I'm gonna play it to you. I will assure you that I will not win an Oscar with it, and it was clearly made spontaneously, which you'll probably be able to tell. But you never know when things are going to just go viral, and this is one of those things. The next thing we knew, Fox and Friends picked it up. They were viewed by 1.3 million people. We had on our Facebook page, it reached 95,000 users, over 48,000 views of the video. We don't know, and it had, I think, I don't remember how many shares now, but we don't know what the count is on the shares because we don't have access to that. And then we started getting emails from around the world, Ireland, Russia. We'll probably be investigated for the Russia one, I don't know. And Iceland. But it was just amazing how this thing kind of took off.
I'm Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staly, welcoming you to the Green Roof Inn, also known as the county jail. Now let me tell you about our accommodation. We have a 1-star rating, and we're working to lower that as there's no privacy in this hotel. It has group bathrooms and showers, no meal selection. You eat what we give you. Well, you don't eat. Free transportation to courthouse or state prison. We give you designer jewelry to wear, also known as handcuffs and leg irons. And we give you free designer clothing, coordinated matching, jumpsuits, and sandals. Crime stops here. I hope you don't enjoy your stay. I'm Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staly, and I hope you did not enjoy your stay at the Green Roof Inn. I don't want you to come back. Don't get arrested by a deputy again. Stay crime-free. But if you must commit another crime, know that the light is on and we have a bed waiting for you. Enjoy your freedom. Stay crime-free.
So that's probably the last of my acting. But, it sent a message, and the message was, don't get arrested. And if you get arrested, don't come back. But if you're gonna commit another crime, we're going to arrest you. You know, go to another county. I don't care where you go, as long as it's not in Flagler County. As you may know, last year, we had 3 domestic-related homicides in Flagler County. I identified that our domestic violence was increasing, and we could either sit back and do nothing, or we could form a task force and try to find a community-driven solution to domestic violence. So last year we held a summit, and the community really came together, a lot of community volunteers, and developed a community-driven solution and suggestion on domestic violence in our county. And I predicted that once the community knows that there is a support system and that services are available, domestic violence will probably actually go up because there will be more reported before it goes down. And unfortunately, we are seeing that. But one of the recommendations was for us to have a dedicated detective and analyst to look at nothing but domestic violence. So we applied for a state grant. We received it, $160,000 grant, and we now have a dedicated detective that works nothing but domestic violence and a dedicated crime analyst that analyzes the causes, the roots, and monitors the offenders and assists the victims of domestic violence. Let me just go back, and I can tell you that is working. Already we have a batterers intervention program now in Flagler County, which before was only located in Volusia County. We've now implemented an invest program here, and that is working. And I think in the next few months, we're still looking at technology and cost, that we will have the ability to put ankle monitors on offenders when they are released from the jail by the court, so that we can set up zones around someone's house, around their work, so that if the offender comes into those certain areas, it will immediately alert the victim, and will immediately alert the sheriff's office that there is a violation and to respond. I'll give you an example. Just last week, an offender was arrested. He's a habitual domestic violence individual. He was arrested. He was released on a no contact order after spending a couple days in jail. But we knew he would go right back. And so our detective anticipated that. And sure enough, he went right back to where he violated the judge's order. And we immediately arrested him in violation of the no contact order, put him back in jail, and this time the judge held him on no bond. And so that's an example of what we are doing now that wasn't being done in the past, and what the INVEST program has allowed us to do. We worked with the city of Palm Coast last year for this year's budget to hire 5 additional deputies for traffic enforcement. We had 37 traffic fatalities last year in Flagler County. 30, I believe, one of them occurred within the city limits of Palm Coast. And so the Mustangs are here. So we have 5 motors. We have 5 deputies that are in traditional marked cars right now. The Mustangs have been marked, the equipment's being installed, and soon you will see Mustangs that look like this to do traffic enforcement. So my advice to you is this: if you see a white Mustang sitting around and you're speeding, it's probably too late by the time you see it. They're not going to have roof lights. They're known as slit top cars. They will light up like a Christmas tree behind you. But we're going to primarily focus on speed enforcement, DUI enforcement, and aggressive driving, hoping to make our community safer for pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers, and reduce the number of fatalities. So here's what we've done, what we're seeing so far when it comes to traffic. So year to date, meaning since January, 685 traffic crashes. in this community. There have been 5 traffic fatalities so far. We have a volunteer corps, part of our COP program, that helps us with minor traffic crashes, and a lot of these crashes are parking lot. The TCI volunteers handled 809 traffic crashes in 2017 that normally a deputy sheriff would have been tied up and had to do that. So it's a phenomenal program. They've already handled 119 so far this year. The first quarter of this year, we've made 1,407 traffic stops. We've written 780 tickets. So you almost have a 50-50 chance of getting a ticket or not getting one. It doesn't matter to me if we write tickets, if we can get the compliance, because that's what we're looking for. And but the deputies obviously have the discretion to do that. Even with all our education on DUI, we have made 30 DUI arrests so far this year. Another team that you will see soon, they've already been selected, their vehicles are being equipped, and this is again, thank you to the County Commission for the funding for this, is we're creating a PACE team, Problem Area Crime Enforcement Team. This would be like a tactical team so that we're not having to pull deputies from answering calls in the green and white. They will be in tactical inspired vehicles. You will not recognize them. They're not going to look like anything that we're driving, so they can blend in the neighborhood. So when we identify in crime maps that we have a problem area in a particular neighborhood or community, these units will go in and have the time to either make the arrest or find out what the root cause is and work those cases so that we're not having to go back to the same area. That should roll out. We have deputies in training right now, so that should roll out in the next probably 2 months as soon as the deputies get done with their training. And again, they will focus on our car burglaries, but we wouldn't have to focus on that if we locked car doors. Burglaries, they will assist in drug raids, gangs. I'm not going to let gangs move into this community. I don't want them to feel safe. So we will focus heavily on them and any robberies. Right now robberies are down, so that's a good thing. Some of the things that we did to serve the community is I combined accreditation manager and internal affairs. So I freed up a sergeant that is now on patrol. We hired the first general counsel and paralegal, and let me tell you, that was one of the best things we ever did. It had been contracted out part-time before for just a little bit more money. I could have a full-time general counsel. And with some of the things that the legislature just did on a thing called a request for protection order, or a request protected order. Oh, I'm sorry, risk protection order. The only ones that can file that and go to court is the attorney for the law enforcement agency. So the state attorney's office is not going to be involved in that the way it was structured. It's a civil order, and so the prosecutors are not involved in that. So if we think someone qualifies under the statute that we need a risk protection order, the only one that's going to be able to do it is an attorney, because it's got to go before a judge and all kinds of built-in hearings and due process rights. And so I suspect she will be very busy soon on that. As I mentioned, domestic violence unit, created a domestic homeland security section. When I first did that, there was a lot of questions, why do we need that in Flagler County? One of the best decisions I've probably made so far as sheriff is because they are extremely busy. Anytime we get a school threat or we get a threat on business, or someone gets identified or suspicious of maybe being a lone wolf or have some issue that could turn violent, that person is vetted through our domestic homeland security section. And if it rises to the level that's necessary, we immediately coordinate with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's Fusion Center out of Jacksonville, A fusion center is where all this intel goes together and then they vet it. So the goal is for us to not have a Parkland type situation or where a shooter was contacted 30 times before they acted over a number of years and have that occur here. So we would rather be on the front end on that. In the youth services section that created by August next year at Matanzas High School, we should have a criminal justice academy, starting there very similar to the fire academy that's currently at Flagler County High School. The hope here is that you know, kids that go through this, if they start in the beginning of high school, when they graduate, they'll have 12 hours towards a criminal justice degree, and maybe I can find detention deputies, I can find law enforcement deputies, I can find 911 operators, CSI, whatever their interests are, so that we can keep our kids here instead of them going somewhere else. At the same time, if this is their track, their life track, that means they're not going to get criminally involved, and it may actually help feed my Explorer program, which is part of the Boy Scouts of America for kids that are interested in a career in law enforcement. Our PAL Middle School Sports Program, we partnered with the school district to provide middle school sports after hours, 2 days a week. That has 500 kids in it. Our PAL program has 1,500 kids in it. And these are kids that if we keep them busy, they're not going to get engaged in other behaviors. Sheriffs are required to provide medical care for people in their custody. And the way we were doing it, frankly, before was high liability. There was a part-time doctor, there was paramedics that came in twice a day, and other than that, we were asking deputy sheriffs to ask medical questions, which they're not trained to do. That was just a risk I was not willing to accept as your sheriff. So we, so what was also happening is that the medical doctor or a paramedic, if they would get called to the jail, would say, you need to take them to the hospital. So then when we transport them out of the jail to the hospital, depending on their classification, I have to tie up 1 or 2 deputies guarding them at the hospital. If they're admitted, now I'm paying overtime. And it stands for skills, transitional support, respect, integrity, direction, and employment. For those offenders that want to turn their life around, we're going to give them a helping hand. I would rather them not come back to the hotel. I would rather them be productive citizens. So we have many partners in the community that support this program, and our goal is to make them successful and not re-enter the jail. There's an orientation meeting with the inmates that qualify, setting their goals. Why can't you be productive? Some of it might be they don't have a Social Security card. Without a Social Security card, you can't get a job. They've lost their birth certificate. So we have community partners that help get those items for them. Many of them don't have a high school education. We did some testing, and many of them were testing out at the 2nd grade level. So if we can help them get a GED, then maybe they can be productive. We have Alcoholics Anonymous, we have Narcotics Anonymous classes, we have a Christian-based anger management, we have a non-denominational ministry services, we work with Open Door Recovery, we have domestic violence counseling, choices and changes programs, and parenting class. Many of these inmates didn't have a good role model growing up, and now they have kids. And they don't really know how to raise kids. So we have parenting classes, all trying to help them not come back if they're willing to do that. These are just some of our community partners. I won't go through them all, but you can see we have a lot of community partners that have stepped up, and we don't pay for anything on this. The community has just been really great. I mentioned that we're going to have an inmate workforce. The vehicle, everything is ready to go, and we kind of piloted it during Hurricane Irma. If you had sandbags, maybe they helped you fill the sandbags, and they were actually carrying them to your car and putting them in. The inmates enjoyed doing it. They felt like they were giving back. Obviously, they got outside the four walls of the jail, so that was advantageous to them. But it was a great program for both, and obviously that will continue. But I'm hoping we don't have to deal with a hurricane this year, and that we'll just do the landscape maintenance stuff. We did create a Flagler Sheriff's Employee Assistance Trust. We had the first annual gala in January of this year, and this is a trust that while I structured it, I wanted to make sure it was very independent and not controlled by any future sheriff. So the sheriff gets one appointee, and then there's 2 community members that are appointed, and it is designed for emergencies that affect an employee. Their house burns down, they have a medical issue, they have some kind of life event that you just don't expect, but it happens to all of us, where they don't make a lot of money. So when you have a life event that's significant, we had a deputy whose son was born and had a lot of heart issues, and they were in Orlando for over 30 days. That's a huge expense that they're not expecting. And that's what this trust is designed for, 501(c). And the community members that spearheaded this up, they told me their goal was $50,000 to net, and quite frankly, I set the bar usually pretty high, but I pretty well laughed. I said, that's not gonna happen. Well, they showed me wrong. We had a great gala in January, and they netted $71,000 for this trust.
Out here, spending time in the community. I'll get out in some of our worst neighborhoods, right, or high crime areas, and I'll sit there with the drug dealers. They're not slinging dope at that time, but I'll get out to the picnic table and we'll talk. That's the way we develop relationships. And again, we're doing something right because we're showing a reduction of crime so far in the first quarter. Now, we can do a lot of things, but let's be honest, folks. Some of it's luck as well. We're trying to do the right thing. Community engagement, we're doing that all the time. Partnerships is very, very important. Without partnerships in the community, like I said, we're outnumbered, we're outgunned here, the number of officers. So we have to be creative and change our shifts. So we have overlap shifts, so I have enough coverage as well as protection of our officers as well as the community. One very important aspect of the direction we went is organizational change and development. Okay? So my officers now have a clear vision. They know the direction they're going. They know what I want. They know what the community wants, and they're doing a great job on doing so. One of the other strategies that we adopted, and the sheriff's and some of his specialized units have really helped us, was our intelligence-led policing. I just put a couple bullets in there so you know what we're doing. We're trying to analyze and interpret crime. We're working with the Sheriff's Office crime analysis all the time. We're trying to develop our own mapping program, which is unique for our community. We're constantly sharing information and intelligence, not only in-house, but also other agencies, to include some of our state and federal agencies that have come in to assist us while combating some types of crime. Allocating resources to our officers is one of, they're the guys that are, men and women that are out here disrupting crime. They're on the streets 24/7, so we want to make sure we provide them with some good information as well as the resources to address this criminal activity. Again, a 33% decrease in our focused crime activity. Again, for the first quarter, I'm very pleased with that.
I know quite a few people that are afraid to say something because my understanding is the calls to the sheriff's department are not anonymous. How does that happen?
Well, you can be anonymous. Now, if your phone number pops up, we're going to know who that is. We're going to ask for information on who you are, who the caller is, but anyone can decline to do that. On our website, you can send us tips. There's a tip form, and if you don't want your name or address, you just leave all those areas blank. And you can always send us information at tips@flaglersheriff.com. And if you have crime information tips, you can always call Crime Stoppers in Northeast Florida and give the tip there. It's completely anonymous. They give you a code name, and you can be eligible for a reward up to $5,000. So
I think we all watched with great sadness as a community, reflecting upon the community that was faced with these challenges. Did it change the mission of your organization at all when that shooting occurred? I know you came in with a very, very specific priorities to address our just crime issues based on our zones and districts, but I'm just curious if that having an effect on your decision-making and leadership moving forward.
did everybody hear the question? The question was dealing with the Parkland shooting, and when that happened and what the legislature did it change any of their priorities and so forth? Well, first let me say it made us even busier than we already are, because all of a sudden we started getting a lot of false threats that have to be vetted. They have to be thoroughly investigated. It takes a lot of resources. And I will tell you that I've directed our deputies that if they can make an arrest on a threat, no matter how innocent, oh, I said this as a joke, I don't care. They're going to get arrested on any type of threat. But it has really ramped up the investigative needs to track that stuff down. And sometimes it's a social media viral post. We had one that actually I think was in Virginia, but it had MHS, so here, as it went around social media, they thought it was Matanzas High School. And that individual had already been arrested, if I remember right, that it was in Virginia. And but we had to do a thorough investigation and track this back in there. So it ties up a lot of resources. As far as changing priorities, it had always been a goal to have a school resource deputy in every school as one of my visions. I think what it did was accelerate that vision. That was not something that I was going to ask for next fiscal year, just because there's so many needs. But now there's no choice, because the state has mandated it, that a deputy or police officer be in every school, or the school district can start their own police department. And there's a few school districts that have police departments in Florida. I don't believe this district's going to do that. Or you can do the Guardian program, which is a volunteer program with lots of guidelines and restrictions for training and selection, or non-teachers, so administrators basically, or a employee of the school that is not just solely a teacher can be armed. So to comply with the statute, you have to pick one of those choices. And our district has indicated they are not interested in the Guardian program. They are not interested in arming the teachers. They haven't said they don't want a police department, but they've indicated that. So then you're down to the choice of a deputy sheriff in every school, which I think is a good thing. It'll allow us to do other things. You know, right now we have school resource deputies in high school. We have school resource deputies in middle school, but we don't have them in elementary. And so our goal is by next August, at the start of the school year, that we will be able to kick that off. That's 8 additional deputy sheriffs to do that, because the statute also says for every 1,000 students you have 1 deputy. So at Flagler Palm Coast, 2,500 students, that means 2 deputies. And if they ever get to 3,000, that'll be another deputy. And Matanzas with 1,500 students, that's 1 deputy sheriff, or I'm sorry, they're right at 2,000, I think, students. So that's another deputy there.